Hi, everybody.
Hello everyone. Today I thought I'd share my thoughts on how to categorize and compare bikes. I should say first and foremost that this is not a ranking system. I'm not saying any bike is better than any other this time. I'm going to be focusing on dual sports and ADVs because they're the only categories that span both the on-road and off-road spectrum of riding. Because both categories overlap, there can be a little confusion as to which bike belongs where. I believe it's important to know this so that people aren't trying to compare apples to oranges, but apples to apples. For example, let's say someone wants to compare my 690 Enduro with a Tenere 700, which a lot of people did in the comments on my last video. On the surface, it may look like a good comparison, but in reality, they are built to do different things. One might be great in a certain area, while the other is better in another. The problem is that some people like to claim that one bike is entirely better than the other based solely on one thing that bike is good at, i.e., apples are better than oranges because they taste more like apples than oranges do. So what is the difference between dual sports and ADVs? Well, to make it as simple as possible, dual sports are primarily meant for dirt riding, whereas ADV bikes are primarily built for the street. However, I intend to break this down even further so that it's easier to distinguish. First of all, there's the weight. The heaviest dual sports are around 350 pounds, but the lightest ADVs are at least 450. I'm not counting the small ADVs like the 390 Adventure or 310 GS because they're just off doing their own thing. But getting back to the point, there's a minimum of a 100-pound difference between the two categories. Therefore, if we want to make a cutoff weight, we can just split the difference down the middle. Anything below 400 pounds is likely in the dual sport range, while anything over is likely an ADV. Secondly, the engines. Dual sports almost exclusively have single-cylinder engines. This is part of the reason they are lighter, but thumpers also tend to be responsive and torquey down low, which is good for off-road. They are often paired with close ratio transmissions, which limits their on-road capability. ADVs, on the other hand, have parallel or V-twins, which tend to be smoother and produce their power a little higher in the RPMs. Paired with wide ratio gearboxes, this makes them more ideal for the street or travel. Fuel capacity can range greatly across both categories, but a typical dual sport will come with anything between a 2 and 4 gallon tank, where ADVs should be 4 gallons and above. And I say should because there are a few ADVs that are lacking in this regard. In reality, I believe ADVs should have at least 5 gallons as they're meant to go longer distances. An ADV should have a range of 200 miles or more. Dual sports, for the most part, will have a range of less than 200 miles, with some barely even making it to 100. There are also some cosmetic yet functional differences as well. First of these is ADVs tend to have solid fairings with windscreens to help protect the rider from wind and debris, as well as house large displays and accessories. Dual sports, on the other hand, are very minimalistic, with their lights and gauges being mounted to the forks. The amount of electronics and accessories is itself another indicator for whether a bike is an ADV or a dual sport. Another feature that differentiates the two is the position of the exhaust. ADVs, having larger 2-cylinder engines, require 2 exhaust ports, and with the larger engine, there is no room to run the exhaust high or within the frame. Therefore, ADVs have their exhaust systems run down and along the bottom of the bike's frame. Dual sports, with very few exceptions, have typical dirt bike exhausts, as many of them are derived from dirt bikes in the first place. Although it's not the most functional difference, the position of the front fender is an indicator as well. ADVs have their front fender located right on top of the tire, whereas dual sports have them mounted just underneath the headlight, again like a dirt bike. But a low fender helps with high-speed stability like highway riding. Rim and tire size is another important difference. Dual sports will always have a 21/18 setup. Some ADVs will run these sizes, but you're likely to see smaller diameter rims being used. However, ADVs tend to have wider rims for fatter tires. Now, I could spend all day breaking down every little thing, but at this point, I think you get it. There can always be exceptions to these rules, but basically, if it checks off more boxes in one category than the other, you'll have your answer. And as I've said, these differences are both cosmetic but functional. You can see at a glance that ADVs and dual sports look quite different, but these differences add up into machines that are built to do different things. Every feature I've listed for ADVs is better for the road, and everything listed for dual sports is better for off-road. Now, none of these things means that one type of bike is better than the other, but it is useful in deciding which category might be right for you. If you value comfort and plan to travel or commute with your bike, then maybe an ADV is a better choice for you. If you like to hit the trails while still being able to bomb around town, then maybe you should look at getting a dual sport.